Once again, thanks for coming. Just want to say that we depend on Dr. Chomsky, or Professor Chomsky, to give us a story behind the story. And he, as you know, will often contradict what we see in the media. Thank God for that. And as he informs us, we can inform our community. So nothing more needs to be said by me. Please give a hand to Professor Chomsky.
Yes, please, in the Q&A, bring up anything. I mean, I've been asked to talk about Haiti, so I'll talk about that, but lots of other things. If any of you have ever flown into Haiti, you've been greeted by a rather depressing sight. Half of the island is green and the other half is brown. The Haiti side is brown. That's partially just ecology. The Dominican Republic side happens to be just the way the rains go and where the mountains are and so on. It happens to be more fertile. But most of it is man-made, like most catastrophes. And that carries right up to the present. The hideous catastrophe of the earthquake, which is one of the worst in the modern period. Hundreds of thousands of people killed, massive destruction. I'm sure you know all about it. It's to a substantial extent a man-made catastrophe. There are two countries that are primarily responsible, France and the United States. I happened to have come back from a couple of days in Paris a few days ago, and I did try repeatedly to raise the issue in France, but it's very hard to find anybody who wants to hear about it. And I hope it's a little better in the United States, but the U.S. and Haiti and France owe a tremendous debt to Haiti, and by rights should be paying massive reparations at this point, not giving aid. Probably too much to ask for, but it's a goal we ought to have in mind. And the nature of the man-made catastrophe tells us a lot about what can be and ought to be done to try to resurrect some kind of a decent life. Well, I'll run through the history briefly. I'm sure most of you know it pretty well. Haiti was France's richest colony, in fact, probably the richest colony in the world. In 1789, it produced 75% of the world's sugar. It was the leading producer of cotton. Cotton was, of course, the fuel of the Industrial Revolution. It was the leading producer of tobacco and a whole range of other valuable commodities. It's the source of probably around 20% of France's wealth, something roughly like that. At the time of the revolution, of course, took place then, and it turns out there was no discussion of the liberation of Haiti, with all the grand rhetoric about revolution and equality and democracy, freedom, and so on. Nevertheless, Haiti did undertake, there was a slave revolt. The French turned it into a slave society, a plantation society, that devastated the fragile ecology. France also started the process, which has now reached a horrible level, of cutting down the trees because they wanted to ship them back to France to build elegant houses and so on. That denuded the hills, leads to erosion, more devastation. By the time the French were driven out in 1804, there had already been very serious damage. The war itself, the War of Liberation, was a brutal war. France was assisted by massive help from England, the main imperial power, by the United States, by others. The idea that black people could gain freedom was really frightening to the West. But Haiti nevertheless won its freedom in 1804. It was actually the first free country of free men in the hemisphere. I stress men because women had no very few rights here or anywhere else. And it was terrifying, particularly to the slave state nearby, the United States. The idea that you could have a free black slave, a former slave country, was obviously frightening. Haiti was was punished severely for the crime of liberating itself and becoming the first free country. France imposed a huge indemnity, which Haiti had to pay. There was no other way they could they would be allowed to enter the international system. In fact, they didn't even pay it off until after the Second World War. And it was a yoke around their neck all through that period. The harshest punishment was, not surprisingly, from the United States. The U.S. refused to recognize Haiti. Other imperial powers did so, but not the U.S. The U.S. did finally recognize it in 1862, the same year it recognized Liberia, and for the same reason. That was the year of the Emancipation Proclamation, and there was a problem about what to do with these free black people. We didn't want them here. It was a terribly racist country, unbelievably so. It was everyone. And they had to be shipped somewhere. So the thought was, well, maybe we can ship them off to Liberia and Haiti. Actually, that plan was dropped about 10 years later. Those of you who know African American history will remember that in the entire history of African Americans in the United States, there's been barely a few decades of a little bit of freedom. One of them was from the Civil War up till 1877, the Reconstruction period. After that, there was a compact between the North and the South, which closed the door on that period of freedom. The South was essentially given authority to reinstitute slavery. In fact, something much worse than slavery. They introduced, what was done was to criminalize black life. He looked the wrong way, or somebody claimed he looked the wrong way at a white woman, he charged with attempted rape, and so on. Pretty soon you had a huge prison population, mostly black males, and they were put right back into the cotton fields now in chain gangs. They're put into the mines, the mills. U.S. Steel had its mills there, and so on. In fact, that's a large part of the American Industrial Revolution, based on black slave labor after the Civil War. Well, that went to the Second World War. The Second World War, there was a need for free labor for the military industry. There's huge growth of industry during the Second World War, and after that there was a growth period in the United States for about 20 years, and there were opportunities for what amounted to a new immigrant population, the black population. There were opportunities, to get a job in an auto plant and have a pretty decent salary, buy a home, and so on and so forth. All of that pretty much crashed in the 1970s when new economic policies were instituted across the country, in fact, across a large part of the world, what's called neoliberalism. The economy was financialized, industry was increasingly hollowed out, production abroad and so on. Those job opportunities disappeared. You had this black superfluous population on your hands again. And so the same solution was picked that was picked after the Second World War, criminalization. So right from this period, around 1980, the prison population in the United States starts escalating. 1980 was roughly the same as Europe, now maybe 5 to 10 times as high. And mostly black males, mostly on fraudulent drug charges. The drug war was begun at that point as an instrument for recriminalization. And we're kind of back to, and they're used for prison labor, making license plates and so on. It's a kind of a repetition of the post-slavery period. Well, going back to Haiti, the plan to ship the population out to Haiti and Liberia was sort of shelved once they became useful as a criminalized slave population here. And at that point, the United States pretty much took over from France in torturing Haiti. There were dozens of military interventions in the late 19th century and into the 20th century. The worst of them was under Woodrow Wilson. Wilson in 1915 invaded countries of Hispaniola, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic.